Indiana Jones, Indiana It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the podcast about Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where we hope to turn a few prairie dog heads. I'm Pete Mummert.
I'm Tom Taylor.
I'm Jerry Porter.
And one more time, we're very excited to welcome back Jennifer Levasseur from the Smithsonian, space historian. Welcome back, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, we love talking to you last minute on Wednesday, and today we're going to be talking about minute 18. And minute 18 begins with Indy and Dovchenko taking a really fast subway ride through the Washington, D.C. metro. And it ends with a very discombobulated Indy hiding in the bushes from the approaching Russians. And yeah, this looks almost exactly like those stations in the D.C. metro downtown. Like the patterns on the walls.
What is that noise? How would you describe the noise?
It's weird. It's like a beeping. It's like a... I don't know what it is, but it sounds
one
amazing.
Of them sounds like one of those, like, this is a test. Like,
yeah.
Remember
those?
Oh,
yeah.
It goes,
yeah.
This is only a test.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Had this been an actual Indiana Jones movie, you wouldn't be all bothered by all this business and stuff.
I'm not sure what the sound is, but like when you listen to it with headphones, it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And whenever I see a ship going through, or anything, any like object going through a tunnel like that, it's always Buck Rogers or Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, Battlestar Galactica. Yeah.
Yeah. Just launching out of those tubes.
Or it makes me think of, is that how it starts if you ride, what's the ride at Disney World?
Space Mountain?
Yeah.
Kind of the same idea.
Yes.
That's very cool.
It's definitely not like the tunnel in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
No, that one's slow and scary.
That would have been really cool.
Can I just say that Space Mountain is about 10 times better if you get to sit in the very front?
Oh, really?
Like, it's amazing when you sit in the very front because you don't see anybody in front of you. You just see darkness.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah. If you get a chance, they'll let you wait. Like if you get in and you're in the middle of the roller coaster, to ask it to wait to be first for the next one, and they'll let you sit in the front. It's worth the wait.
My son hated Space Mountain. I felt bad.
It's because he didn't sit in the front.
Maybe it's because he didn't sit in the front. He was all excited because like you're like getting on and it's like a big spaceship and the whole thing is all futury and Buck Rogersy and everything, and he's all excited. And then we got on. He's like, "Oh my god, that was hard." Like it took us like 10 minutes to get over it. We're just like,
really
feel good. Yeah, I don't. I think
okay.
My wife and I are just kind of past the age for roller coasters, and I think he's just not quite there yet.
Huh.
So we're all kind of stupid Space Mountain, we're like kicking it on the way out.
I'm guessing you're not going to Cedar Point anytime soon. Then.
See, I love Cedar Point, and there's a couple of the Iron Dragon at Cedar Point. He likes a lot. Where you're kind of hanging underneath.
That's disgusting. Wait a minute. All the roller coasters, you picked the Iron Dragon?
What's wrong with the Iron Dragon?
The Iron Dragon, awful. You're hanging. Yeah, and because of the G-force or whatever, all the blood rushes to your feet.
Yeah.
And I remember being on that thinking, I'm gonna bleed out because my feet are gonna explode. Like I imagine
step off and your feet are just gonna pop.
Like just like cartoon tomatoes where my feet were gonna be.
That was the
disgusting.
Coolest ride in about 1993. So.
Exactly. Yeah, we're behind the times a little bit.
I could not get I past that. I did that once and I said never again. Talk about your rocket sleds figuring out what they're going to do to your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. That acceleration thing is actually, I think it's been used well in roller coasters in a few places where it is a surprise. So they just took down one here. There's it's owned by the same company that Cedar Fair, who owns Cedar Point, now owns King's Dominion and King's Island, and that whole change.
I used to live around there. I love that place.
Yeah. There used to be a ride there that opened in the 90s called Volcano, and they just shut it down this year. But it had this great thing. The first time I rode it with my now husband, but back when we were dating, I took him on the ride, and I had been on it before, and he and I both love roller coasters, and so we get in this ride. It's sort of like the Iron Dragon in its configuration, so your feet are dangling. There's no car underneath you, though. They're just dangling. And basically, you leave the station, you make a left-hand turn, and as soon as the last car turns, it just shoots you straight forward really,
God.
really fast, and you come out the top of this volcano. And the faces of people when that happens, it's just, and that's when they take the picture of you, too. So you have evidence of your shock when you accelerate like that. So.
Just imagining you on that date. Are your feet going to barf, too?
That's when I knew. And he was worried about his
It
feet
was meant
barfing.
to be.
Oh my gosh. Well, one question I have about the geography of this Area 51 thing. So they're at the beginning of the movie, they're on the ground, right?
Yeah.
Like they're on the ground, and then they go
Well,
through the whole thing. And okay, go ahead.
When they're in the warehouse and then they fall through
Yeah.
that window, so I guess they're underground.
Yes.
Yeah.
But and then do you see where I'm going with this? And then the rocket shoots out
Of a tunnel.
and they're the tunnel, and they're on the ground.
So maybe they're
It's
in the
a-
back of the warehouse that's built on a little hill, like
It's a split
about
level
the height of a
warehouse.
rocket sled.
Is that,
Yeah.
I guess? I guess that's what it is. It's like there's a little, I mean,
My grandparents' house was like that. You go in on the ground floor, but then you go out the back door, and there's suddenly like a drop. You're like, you're up high on the second floor. All
yeah,
of a sudden.
okay. All right. That's totally acceptable.
Totally believable for mid-50s,
Yeah.
architecture.
They hit, well, there is, around Area 51, there is like, that place, Yucca Mountain, right? Where
Mhm.
there's a lot of, like, isn't that where all the nuclear waste is?
That's why they call it yucca.
I believe so.
Yeah,
I
it's
think.
the nuclear waste
I guess my
repository.
point is there are these big mountains and mounds and up and downs and mountains. It's
Yeah.
totally possible that this geography.
Large
could
ant
work.
hills, too.
Yes.
This is a gorgeous shot, though, as it's rocketing down the track like it does.
It
It's
is.
all lit up. And Tom, I know you're going to hate me for saying this, but even the prairie dogs lit up is a beautiful shot.
hate
Just
you
the
for
lighting
saying
on them is
I actually hate you
wonderful.
for saying that.
Are those? But they're CGI, right? Am I wrong on that? Or
Yeah.
No, I think you're correct. I think
yeah,
you're
I think
correct.
they're pretty fake, which is
I think they're sock
unfortunate.
puppets.
Yeah. No, I'm not a fan of the prairie dogs at all, but I like the lighting on them.
See, I'm upset that they interrupt that really beautiful shot with those silly
Yeah.
hedgehogs.
What would have made a lot more sense is if you've ever watched sort of these kind of launch videos and, many movies that have been made and there's a rocket launch in them. One thing that's always looks really good is if you see it reflected in a window or glasses.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking of, I think it's The Right Stuff, where there's the launch of John Glenn or one of the astronauts, and they have a shot of a guy wearing these glasses. I think he's got a mustache or something, and you see it reflected in his glasses, and he says "go," and it's really
Oh, yeah.
beautifully done.
Yeah.
It's just this really elegant. So. Unfortunately, it's not that elegant this time, but it still looks good.
Yeah.
So are the prairie dogs used to this?
It's like the 10th time they've tested this
yeah.
thing. They're
Yeah.
Like, oh, there we go.
I
There goes
don't
the
really
neighborhood.
quite. I mean, to pull a Tom here, I don't quite get what they're doing in this movie.
Yeah. It's like they made the model of the hedgehog for one shot, and they have to keep using it.
Jennifer, you work at the Smithsonian. Can you tell us why are they in this movie?
Wrong building. They're across the hall, across the mall in this case.
As a spokesman for the entire Smithsonian network,
Yeah.
please explain.
Well, then we get Mac out of breath. Well, first some soldiers load the alien coffin into Spalco's Jeep, and then
Mhm.
Mac jumps in beside her, and he looks like he's about to have a heart attack. Like he does not look well.
You just saw 20 guys get barbecued
Yeah.
to death.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe she's just trying to make him feel
that
better.
could really make a bad impression and ruin your day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she says you did Vell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Who's
I
Vell?
wondered, did Mac do Vell?
Yeah, I don't know if he did Vell.
No, I don't
What
know if
did
he
he
did
do?
either.
I don't know if any
Indiana
of them did
Jones,
Vell.
he got away. Indiana Jones
Yeah.
got away.
I don't think
but
that's on
on
Mac,
all
though.
of them. They were all
Yeah.
shooting at him. Mac did have a gun to his head and
Yeah.
still managed to not kill him.
I think Mac did his job. I think Mac was the one that did his job. I think everybody else maybe dropped the ball a little bit.
But what exactly did he do?
Vell.
Like, what job did he do?
No, I don't. Yeah.
And did he do it Vell?
No. I think
He
this is a little
That's a good
microcosm
question.
for this movie.
Huh.
You know, it's like, Mac, you did Vell, and you're like, where?
Like, all he did was give himself up as a double agent.
Yeah.
Like, and so now Indy doesn't trust him anymore. And now that Indy's still alive and they still want to get rid of him, I guess.
But after Indy had the gun, Mac basically disarmed him. So like Indy
No, but
would
by
have
that
gotten away
point,
for sure.
I guess so. Yeah.
Indy would have gotten away for sure at that point. If Mac
Maybe
hadn't.
she just means, like, thanks for bringing Indy to Area 51.
With you in a trunk.
yeah, tied up in a trunk next to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was nice of you.
It's an interesting
He performed
line.
his duty.
I guess.
I guess it's meant, I guess, to just be like, yep, Mac's with these guys.
Yeah.
Like she's got him. She's, whatever. She's his boss now or something.
Yeah.
But it does seem weird. Yeah, like it's awfully nice of you to say that I did Vell, because I'm not sure I did.
Yeah, I mean, would you get that kind of a compliment in, sort of that era of the Soviet Union? Are people going around complimenting each other for very seemingly
For effort.
insignificant contributions?
Yeah.
We're not all monsters. we can parse out compliments.
Everybody gets a blue ribbon.
But we've done Vell.
But this is just, I mean, any appearance by her, this is, if this movie is meant to be a sort of, a bit campy, a bit, if it was intentionally done this way, she nails this. I'm trying to think of a time when I've seen her in something when she hasn't done exactly what she should do in a role. As kind of silly as this movie is, and all of them are to some degree in certain places, she just, I can't imagine anybody else getting it this right. She's just got the right accent, the right look, just everything. Literally the look she gives him, it's just there. She rocks.
I do keep wondering, I meant to bring this up earlier, but what about Angelica Houston? Wouldn't Angelica Houston have been an amazing Spalko? I just heard her on Mark Maron the other day, and it was really awesome. And she's done characters like this, and she's really good at it. Morticia Addams up against Indiana Jones. That's laughter of agreement, and I appreciate it.
How about Fran Drescher? Fran Drescher would have been a great Spalko.
No. You're doing it
we
wrong.
just throwing out random
lady
names
from the
here?
Progressive commercials.
You're doing it wrong.
See, I don't know. I agree that that she's really awesome in this, and I love Cate Blanchett, but there's often something, and I think we've talked about it a little bit. There's something a little bit not quite perfectly awesome, to the point where I am sort of like looking for somebody else to be in this movie sometimes in that role.
Yeah,
for me, anyway.
I still feel like I agree that she brings a lot to this role, but at the same time, I still find this role, maybe it's the character herself, very forgettable. Like, it's hard for me to get a good handle on what happens in this movie.
Well, that's one of the problems when the writers and directors don't draw the characters well.
But Jennifer, I think, might be disagreeing with us. Like, so
I
you
think
see
Jennifer is disagreeing with us, and she works at the Smithsonian, which means we're wrong.
Yeah,
I don't have any authority over this. No, I mean, I think in terms of, I have to say, I mean, yeah, you have to remember, I mean, especially my more immediate reaction to this is definitely colored by having watched the Chernobyl miniseries recently and thinking about how, in particular, women from, Western countries like, Emily Watson or Cate Blanchett, sort of people from, our neck of the woods, so to speak, how they play roles for women and her. I mean, I think having this as a female character is an interesting thing too, because it's not classically what you would think of as the, I don't know I don't know that I feel I ever really understand like why she's doing this or what her, like, where does this all come from in terms of character development. I don't quite get all the way there, but I think if you were going to have somebody do it, she's the right kind of actress to do it. She can sell it.
Yeah.
She's convincing, and I think that's where I'm going with that. Is she plays it convincingly. I don't disbelieve, oh, this can't possibly be a Soviet woman. So I mean, for the part she has to play, she knocks it out of the park for me. Do I believe that she could really be a, Soviet woman, like sort of in her little power jumpsuit and doing all this kind of stuff? I don't know. It's a hard sell, I think, no matter, who would have played it at that point.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's a great
Helen Mirren. Helen Mirren was a great Russian in 2010.
Well, this is a little bit, but potentially one of the God, what's Steven Spielberg's wife's name? See, forgettable.
Willie
Kate
Scott.
Capshaw.
Oh my gosh.
Kate Capshaw.
How could you forget that?
He'll never come on the show.
One of those, like Willie versus Kate Capshaw. She did a great job acting, but the character, the character was not. She didn't have a lot to work with. That's what we have with Kate Blanchett a little bit.
And Elsa, same thing happened to Elsa. I thought Alison Doody did a really nice job.
Alison, yeah, that's right.
I see a pattern forming here.
Yes.
Of which only Karen Allen seems to have escaped.
But does she?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Really interesting.
I don't get to comment on that. Those aren't my
listen,
minute.
Well, hang on a
That was
minute.
good
Hang on.
foreshadowing.
Let me throw this out. We're getting a little big here. A little big. We talk about the entire franchise. But who in all four movies, or can you think of anyone in, extend it out, that does escape fully, is a solid character through and through and through and through?
Yeah, there's several.
Okay, name one.
Belloc,
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Tote.
Yeah, anybody who died in Raiders came out fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
everybody died in Raiders. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But the people, so like Marcus, Sala, Marion.
You don't think Indy comes through? You don't think he's the main character? I don't know if that's just a
I
cop
do
out.
think
but,
Indy
I mean,
basically comes through. I think he
Yeah.
Yeah, I
basically
think he
comes
does
through
too.
okay.
Yeah.
I think Indy comes through. Yeah.
And they wanted to, or Jonathan Rhys Davies wanted to come back for this movie, and Spielberg was only going to put him in a small part, so he declined, I believe.
Yeah, he was just going to
he
be
said
in
it
like the
would-
wedding
Yeah, he said it
scene.
would cheapen the character.
Yeah.
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 So it's interesting. Would that have redeemed the character for you, Jerry?
Hmm.
I
Like
don't
if
know.
he'd shown up and had a flower that squirted water or something, or
Would he have made it farther in the little Sweet 16 thing that you guys did a while back?
I feel like by the time
great
he got to this
question.
movie, he would have like tripped over the church pews and would have knocked them all over like dominoes, and it would have.
See, I totally
Yeah.
forget last season. I feel like I kind of liked Sala in Last Crusade, didn't I? Or like, I was expecting to be more bothered by him, and I think I ended up being okay with him. So
That's
maybe
probably
for
pretty
me, he
accurate.
still comes through unscathed-ish.
Well, what
Okay.
about Henry Jones Sr.?
He's
Yeah.
only in one movie, but
He's
yeah.
only in one
I mean, he's
movie,
only
but
in
yeah.
one movie. I
What
know.
can you
but
say wrong
he's
about
cheating.
Sean Connery?
from
Yeah.
start to finish, he's totally great.
Yeah.
And he's not in Raiders, so that's somebody who's not in Raiders. But
Mm-hmm. That's true.
yeah.
Short round?
Well,
Just kidding.
maybe to bring this to a screeching halt,
I don't get it.
we can pass here to the rocket sled making a very fast stop. And in the rocket sled, after they rocket down the track, they splash into some water. And first of all, Jerry, this reminds me when you drive on the Grapevine, which for those of you not from California, are the mountains that you drive over going into or out of Los Angeles. There's
Yeah,
a
it's
stretch
the-
of Interstate 5 they call the Grapevine.
The Tejon Pass.
Yeah, the Tejon Pass, and all the way down the steep part. If you're driving north towards San Francisco, when you're going down the steep part of the mountain, they have all these turnouts that are filled with sand. Like if you're driving a semi truck,
Oh wow.
you just steer off to the side and your truck gets buried in sand. Like if your brakes go out and you're out of control. And I've always wanted to drive into those. always.
It's at full speed. Just
Yeah.
You know,
that's
my
what
my
happened.
best memory of the Tejon Pass is when I first moved here, and I got off the side of the road just briefly at some random exit, and it was very quiet and desolate, and I saw a roadrunner,
Wow.
like an actual roadrunner,
Uh-huh.
and it was
Coyote
in the
following
road. Yeah, held up a little sign that said "Yikes." No, that is such a beautiful area. I love that.
And it's weird because if you're driving into LA, and it'll be covered with snow, or
Yeah.
it's amazing.
They have to close it every once in
Yeah.
a while, like in March or April. It'll be closed. Like it'll be warm and sunny in LA, but the Tejon Pass will be snowed shut.
But
Well, I was going to say I have a question about this water
yeah,
slowing down. Now,
Yeah.
these are all.
Kind
I
of
mean,
like
area.
the end of a water ride at Cedar Point, right?
Yes, like the log jam, I believe,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
There
Nestea
you go.
plunge. Well, the thing that's confusing to me is Area 51 is Groom Lake, right? And those are famously like dry lake beds. They're dry lakes.
Mm-hmm.
So what's up with all this water in a dry lake? Like one of the driest parts of
Well,
the country.
The sort of like more factual side of this is this the real rocket sled tests were going on in New Mexico. Not that dramatically shifts the availability of water all that much, but yeah, they're not. They're gonna have to bring that kind of thing in. Obviously, it's not something you can just pull out of the ground. So,
Gotcha.
yeah, but that was I sort of mentioned that last minute. I think is that the deceleration component of this is really what comes in. That's the really important part of the trip for guys like Stapp is what are the effects at that point? Well, how is the body being thrown forward, and what are the effects on the body? And that water is really critical to making that happen. And you can see the spray come up. So that's a really realistic representation of the deceleration, though it happens a lot faster for Indy than it does for John Stapp. He had to go through a couple of sequences to slow down enough. And they were trying to get a really big slowdown, and that's where he gets these massive negative Gs when he's going through that process. That's when he's breaking the bones and things. It's not on the acceleration. It's when
wow.
he's decelerating and he's getting thrown into those straps.
Yeah.
And so that's where all of the real force is. I think there was something like 40, where did I write it down? Some crazy 4 tons of force
Wow.
when he
Man.
goes through that.
God.
And the G rating. So I mean, if you think about it, what are the effects of G forces in other kinds of flight? So when you're launching aboard, say, space shuttle, G forces don't exceed 3 Gs, and you've got somebody
really?
who's being subjected to 46 Gs.
Jeez.
Man.
Wow. How
So-
would you like you would pass out? It seems like did John Stapp pass out? It seems like he would pass out no matter what.
Yeah, I think I seem to remember reading that he did pass out, but it wasn't. Again, it was this like he would get up from this and walk away from it. So even if he passed out, I mean, that's kind of the body's natural reaction. He was able to kind of come to and move on with his day, strangely enough.
Well,
But
Dolph does. He
Yeah, he
passes
does,
out.
and that's
He
so that's
straight up
yeah,
passes
so
out.
it's
Yeah.
that's realistic.
Yeah.
And the blowback of the faces that comes at the very beginning of the minute, we talked about that before. That's very realistic. So the sort of other than the effects, them not having any kind of restraint device on them, although there is a seat in this sled. I mean, it's at the front, which you get to see in this minute.
Yeah.
That's all. The construction of the sled isn't all that inaccurate. It doesn't look all that far off from what. I mean, it's kind of obviously movie stylized, but
I wonder
other
how far
than
they
that,
would have how far they would have flown when it hit the water.
Yeah, the track was a lot. The test track would have been a lot longer than this. So when you look at those videos, there's a lot more to the track than just like this is the end of the track that they're reaching.
Well, like I mean, I wonder
There
how
would have been.
far Indy and Dovchenko would have flown. Like it seems like they would have
Oh,
just like when they hit that water, it seems like they would have kept going if they
yeah,
were
and that's
strapped
what
in.
you see in those videos. They would have gone quite a bit farther. So this maybe, they've cut out a couple of times when they hit water or something because they would have
Mm.
needed a lot more to slow down than just that one
Mm.
puddle.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how and whose idea it was to include a rocket sled in this movie. It's like, did somebody visit a museum or something? And say, you know,
Yeah,
it'd be
well,
cool, and then let's do it
yeah.
upright with the water at the end, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I was there not long ago. I probably should have asked the question, but Alamogordo, New Mexico, is home of the New Mexico Museum of Space History, and they were the museum that had been borrowing the rocket sled from my museum for many years, and they had a part of the track there, and they had the sled on the track, and that was the home of John Stapp. That's
Oh,
where
okay.
he lived many years, and so they're they had it set up so that you could kind of see what it would have looked like in a location not too far from where they did the actual testing. So you're kind of in the area around White Sands.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of stuff happening in that area research wise back then and even now.
So they
I love
could have
how
they could have just gone straight from the rocket sled to the atom bomb test as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all within the same region, so it's not it's not a huge leap.
Hmm.
I love how you just called the Smithsonian your museum. That's hot.
I think we all do that. I used to work. Well, it's funny because we look at it that way, but also we look at I always, when I talk about objects or my collection, I say my collection because like my name is attached to those things now, at least until I retire. But
Oh, totally.
yeah,
I mean,
you
I
feel a
would.
sense of ownership for sure.
Sure,
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
course.
you feel a sense of ownership and responsibility. So, it just kind of comes naturally.
Well, one thing I like is when they are both kind of passed out here and Indy kind of wakes up, you get this really soft night sky and a really
Yep.
beautiful, gentle glow of the runway lights, and you hear the crickets. And it really,
Yep.
I just want to curl up and take a nap. This seems like the coziest, nicest
Okay.
scene.
So this scene to me was the sort of classic morning after a one night stand face for Indy.
What have I
He kind of
done?
has that like, ew, I have just done this thing with this person, get away from me. He kind of gently lifts the head. It is as though they have fallen asleep
We're
together.
not getting breakfast.
On a
just
rocket.
go.
Right. Out of here.
It is really like
How-
he grabs a lot of face when he pushes his face out of the way. Like he kind of sticks his hand and he gets a lot of cheek, and he is really
Yeah.
Well, okay, so this is what's fascinating to me is we just had, our previous minute was one of visceral, screaming gore and violence and like indie style, like just brutal punches, dude getting hoisted up with a chain, choking, and then it's like we have the rocket, right? And then the timbre of the movie, has once again it's slipped on a banana peel, and we're back in this completely like is just like it's sort of it's back to like whimsy and kind of like farcical.
Yeah. What's the first thing he does? He looks for his magic hat.
Yeah, and also like if you listen to the music, it's kind of like it's playful, and like he I mean, think about it. He's like, get this big face away from me, and it's funny. The scene is like back to a funny thing, but you're like, or Indy could take his gun, shoot him,
no,
and then
because he
arm
threw his gun away.
himself.
He threw his gun away after he ran out of bullets.
That is true, but I'm assuming Indy doesn't know that. Like he could rifle through and try and and then what he does is like he gets up, and I understand he's just been through 46G or whatever, but he kind of does like a whoa, 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 and falls back in a pile of dust. I'm just saying
So-
the like the tone of the movie changes once again on a dime.
So, I've listened to you guys do this for 3 seasons, 3 movies. I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm sure somebody in the listener society will, kind of say, shame on you for not remembering this. But did you guys ever talk about Indy as sort of the human version of Pigpen from Charlie Brown? Because
That sounds like something we'd say, but I don't think we did.
No, that's brilliant.
I love that.
We are
because
remiss for
really,
not saying
like
that.
was, yeah. I mean, I'm going back to like the King's Dominion comment because there's Snoopy stuff all over that place.
Yeah.
Pigpen has, he's perpetually followed around by a cloud of dust, and so literally, from the moment Indy's feet touch that ground, it is the cloud of dust everywhere. It's like the rain cloud over his head. It's not that. It's the dust cloud that follows his feet. So
And you know what? Pigpen has a certain flat affect to him too, and I would say Indy does. He's Pigpen's nonplussed. He's just nothing really riles him.
I'll endeavor to run a tidy inn. Whatever he says during like, the Christmas play.
Yeah, and I'd say Indy, like Pigpen makes it up as he goes. I'd say that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Or he's not making up anything.
Yeah.
He's just walking around.
He's
He's got nothing to make up.
There's not.
Well, they were both apparently neglected as children as well.
Yeah. That could easily be.
Oh.
Don't really care what others think about him.
Well, I watched this. I agree that the tone of the movie changes right here, but I don't know. To me, it seems kind of appropriate. Like we had this big, crazy, super violent blitz, but then we're coming down. The sled's coming to a stop. It's like kind of like, it seems like, like I watched Indy falling off the thing like maybe 50 times trying to figure out why I didn't hate it. And I don't hate it. I think it's kind of, it kind of works. It's kind of funny. I think part of it is Harrison Ford's like super weird, like he's messed up. He's like, I'm kind of worried about him. Like, oh my God, Indy's.
And he looks a lot like post-Carbonite Han when he's doing it.
Yeah. Just kind of like janked up and stuff.
Yeah.
And he grabs his hat and falls down, and there's a big puff of dust. I think it's kind of funny.
Kind of makes me think of the infamous story about him, about Harrison Ford and the saucepan. The limo.
Yeah.
Has he been like smoking a little bit before this scene?
Just before the scene. Yeah. Let me know 2 minutes before we go on.
Maybe this is one of those things where they're like, all right, we just gave the audience a lot. We need to give him a breather. I feel like that's a Spielberg
thing.
Yeah,
you got to give him a breather.
Totally.
Although he's, now that you mention this, Jennifer, I'm thinking he's a lot more like Pigpen, because if the way this thing stopped was by water sloshing all around it, and then he falls and there's a cloud of dust, it seems like he would have had to bring that dust with him, because that ground is just going to be mud.
For sure. Yeah. How does he not? Yeah. How does he not end up in mud?
Yeah, and Pigpen still has that cloud around him in like the snow.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
Yeah, they find a way.
It's a pig pen.
So, these movies always have all these little Easter eggy things, and I don't know if there is any Easter egg to this, but one thing I noticed, and maybe it's just my Midwest upbringing that made me notice it, but did you guys note the serial number on the front of the sled?
Yeah. It was what was it? MCH 72. Yeah.
So I look at that from a distance and I see Eastern Michigan. So I'm now going to be on a quest to figure out who on the crew graduated from Eastern Michigan in 1972.
That's
I'm
hilarious.
convinced there's a connection here. It's like using the phone numbers and, area codes or whatever in different things. Somebody put that there for a reason. You don't just make up those letters in that order.
That's hilarious.
I can't get past the fact that this entire scene where the sled comes to a rest looks like it was shot indoors. I know you want to curl up and go to sleep, Pete, but nothing about this looks remotely outdoors.
That's funny. I was complaining about that earlier, but I didn't get that sense right
I didn't
here.
get that sense here either.
Huh.
Maybe because it's dark. I mean, it's nighttime. You wouldn't be able to see farther. So maybe it.
You know, I think that was something I read about online too. Is that there are other people who have picked up on that sense, and in other parts of the film that you have yet to review as part of the podcast.
But we're thinking
People
about 'em.
believed it was done inside, but really it was done outside. The
Right.
big sequence is the jungle chase sequence. People are like convinced that it was done on a sound stage. But it was actually done in like the jungles of Hawaii or something.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Weird.
so this might be another one of those. And they did film. I mean, they filmed on sound stages, but they did do a lot of filming in New Mexico. So,
Although I will say a
would
lot
they
of that
bring
water.
a giant fake rocket sled out there? I don't know.
But I think as great as the rocket visuals are, I feel like the water looks a little CGI, like when
Oh,
they come
really?
to a stop.
Why am I being so kind to this movie? I'm not having any of these problems with anything. I think the water looks fine. I think it's funny when Indy falls down and goes boom.
I like to fall
think,
down and go boom. Yeah, no, I don't mind the water looking CGI so much. I think this whole scene is kind of nice.
Well, you know what? The whole movie does have a sheen of CGI over it, and that might be what you're talking about, Jennifer.
does.
Like the kind of
Yeah. It
indoor
does.
sense.
Yeah.
Like even in
I
like
don't
the
know if it's-
warehouse. The warehouse looks like it's kind of like they painted gold over it or something. Or
Well, and then like
Yeah.
when he
Added
drove
dust
into
or
those
something.
crates and the crates exploded like that.
yeah. There's just there's like a fakiness to everything.
Mhm.
I just
doesn't
had it
look
like
quite right.
a terrifying thought.
Uh-oh.
What if watching this movie 1 minute at a time, like each individual minute is better than the sum?
Oh, weird.
Because we haven't experienced that on any of the other movies, really. I mean, Raiders was brilliant no matter where you were, how you were. But the other two
Yeah, however
movies,
you
I
dice
remember we were saying, okay, look, the problem is we're watching this 1 minute at a time, and we're not watching it as a movie. If we
yeah.
just watched it as a movie, we wouldn't be picking it apart and being so ridiculous about it.
I did that, and that was I mentioned that on the Listener Society. I think I celebrated something. I don't even remember what it was, but I celebrated something by sitting down and watching Crystal Skull like a month ago. And I was like, "What's wrong with me that I'm doing this?" But I actually really enjoyed it as a film. But I still noticed those weird moments of it, like feeling too glossy and too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Too shiny, and that jungle scene. I don't know if it was like in the colorization. Well, maybe
Yeah.
hey, maybe that's part of it. We're dealing with film. This is still film. This is not a digital. This was not made
Yeah.
digitally. Maybe that's it. Maybe they just colored the film in a weird way or something. I don't know.
Maybe.
Well, this was one of his first projects. No, I guess it wasn't one of his first, but he did have a different cinematographer than he did with the other Raiders or the
Yeah.
other Indiana Jones movies. So that might be partially why it's different. But I feel like almost every minute we've watched so far, it's been a lot of fun. Like I feel like we haven't. I mean, Tom will probably disagree, but
No,
I
think
think
I mean, I would.
I think
too.
Jerry's got something there that maybe the minutes add up to more than the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe each. Well, we'll have to see. It's just a thought. We'll put it on. We'll put it on our little vision board or whatever.
Yeah, it might also be that we don't like know this movie nearly as well as the others.
Yeah,
and
I
we're
think that's
expecting to
true.
hate it, and so like
Yes, that's
just taking it in little chunks. We're kind of
Yeah.
like, oh, look at that. Well, son of a gun.
Yeah.
They did that
When I
nicely.
rewatched it, I guarantee you, and I remember people talking about it even last season or it coming up, and people referencing it a certain way. And sitting down and watching it, I thought it was just kind of fun. It
Yeah,
really, I
yeah,
didn't
I
spend a lot
agree.
of time thinking about it. It was just like, because I wasn't watching it, obviously, yet to analyze it this way, but just to kind of sit down and refresh my memory on it, I was like, this isn't as bad as I remember.
Yeah.
It was 2008, and I was trying to think, well, what was going on in 2008 that might have colored my memory, colored my experience then, and what changes that now? So, and then maybe that's part of it, is that I've had enough distance from 2008 and enough other experiences to go, oh, this isn't, maybe everything that's happened with sort of Disney and Star Wars and all that has changed the way I just kind of generally look at movies.
Yeah, I was just wondering that because we were all just coming out of the prequels, and I know
Yeah.
some people really like the prequels, but for especially some of us who were around for at least some of the original trilogy, they had such a different look and a different feel.
Mm-hmm.
And this has a similar look at points, I think, to some of the prequels.
Yes.
And I wonder if that's part of what a lot of us were like, ugh. Even though, because when I went back and watched this, I also really enjoyed it. And I think I was like, why did I dislike this so much? But then I got later on in the movie and I remembered part of the
Right.
part of the
I was gonna say, I mean, I'm not
the
looking.
beginning of this movie, I think is fantastic.
We're at minute 18. I'm not signing anything yet. So there's a
One
ways
step
to
at a
go.
time.
But I have, there have the minutes, with some exception, the minutes have been digestible. with
They've passed the worst system.
Someone sounds like he's hedging already, but
medium to like mild to medium indigestion, but speaking of indigestion,
speaking of mild to medium indigestion,
yeah. Coming in over the wire, burping. Tom, give us one of your burps.
I say I don't have one.
No.
I only do them off the air.
No, we've
for
already
Pete
had Jerry
specifically.
chewing on the air.
This just in from Professor Christy Porter. Who or what did the prairie dogs represent?
Ooh.
They're the audience surrogate, observing the action of the rocket sled.
Said in a Pigpen voice.
Yeah, it's Indiana Harrison Ford is Pigpen. I didn't think I looked that good.
Yeah, they are a stunned American public at all the wonder created by technology at the 1950s.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are
For burying their heads back in the sand about
Those
the
poor
nuclear
guys.
threat.
Yeah, those poor guys are about to have their world turned upside down too.
Yeah.
Would that ever be possible for those things? Like, did they watch things like that? I mean, if a rocket
They're like meerkats the way they're standing
like
there.
all their heads are going in unison.
Yeah.
Watching, I would assume that they duck down into their hole like in real life.
You don't think they're acting like actual hedgehogs or whatever they are, do you, Jerry?
No, I don't.
I'm with you. I'm all right.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised you're not more on board with these, Tom, with your one of your other myriad of podcasts.
I hated that gopher. I thought that gopher was horrible. And I hate these guys.
Did you? Yeah, okay. All right,
yeah,
well,
the
yeah,
gopher's
it's
rotten
just,
in Caddyshack.
Okay, yeah. I'll give you that.
It's not a kid's movie.
Well, what we did not hate, what we absolutely did not hate was having you with us, Jennifer, all week. This was fantastic. Thank you so much for
Well,
being
thank
here.
you guys for having me back. It's always fun to talk to you guys and, kind of get a chance to step a little bit outside my normal interviewing comfort zone and talk about something that I certainly have a strong attachment to from, maybe, definitely goes back farther than 2008, but it's still pretty meaningful.
Well, and I just wanted to say I had a chance to meet with you in person at your museum, and
Yes.
and I know Tom, you met Jennifer too, and I was
we hung
absolutely
at
blown
Celebration.
away. Yeah, I had not been to the Smithsonian in a long time, and certainly in the not the Air and Space Museum, and I was floored. Like I could have spent weeks there.
Yeah, I've spent 17 years and never gets old.
And I was like the Wright brothers room blew me away. That was my I think
Yeah.
my favorite part of the Air and Space Museum, at least. Could you just explain what yours is real quick? What's your favorite part?
My favorite?
Mhm.
Oh, well, I'm a big fan of that exhibit, actually. For somebody who doesn't, I'm a self-proclaimed airplane know nothing. I really that space to me is very symbolic of sort of the path that our museum is taking going forward. And that exhibit came out in 2003, but it was really it's a sort of part of a turning point for the museum and museums generally in rethinking how we talk about artifacts and how we interact with the public and how we do certain kinds of educational opportunities and things like that. But my exhibition that I was part of and I'm working on now revising for the new version of the museum is about the space shuttle and space station. And I'm who's not going to say they don't like their own work? So, that's a really important space for me. To kind of get opportunities we've got a stage in there, and I go and usually do, when astronauts come through the building, I get an opportunity to introduce them and meet them and talk to them about their experiences. And so I've got a lot of really good memories in that particular room.
Yeah.
So
That was a wonderful visit and a wonderful day.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad I've got a chance, obviously, to see what you do as well, which was a lot of fun. So, yeah, and that's really means pressure's on, Pete. Time for a visit to the Air and Space Museum.
Oh, I'm ready. I can't wait. Cool. Well, anything else you'd like to share before we head into the
No,
weekend?
I'm good. I'm
Okay.
good. I hope you guys. I hope you can carry through some of the good feelings about this movie a little bit longer.
Well, I'll
try.
definitely hold on a little while. Like, I think we're close to losing Tom, and Jerry may have
I
fallen
don't
off the
know.
sled already. I'm not sure. We'll see. But everybody else, please hang on, at least to the Indiana Jones Minute sled, as we will be back Monday for minute 19 of Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
Smithsonian.